What's up? What's up? We are back. Episode 14, Between the Lanes, coming to you. Coach Pierre on the scene. From Chicago, Johnny Nolan Jenkins, Proviso West. What's up, Johnny?
What up? What up? What up, you all?
Yeah, here's our guest, episode 14 from Chicago, Kenwood High School. That is Mike Runnels. Before we get into Mike, be sure to check out episode 13, Alonzo Nelson of Belleville West. That is posted. Please check that out. But let's get right to it. Mike Runnels of Kenwood High School. Yes, the Broncos are here. We'll start here. Get some quick reaction. This is the week that we just had the NBA Finals wrapped up, NCAA's wrapped up, men's and women's. Between those two major sporting events, did anything stand out to you?
Um, Anything stand out? I mean, I thought the NBA Finals was going to be a dogfight, but looks like it was a little shy of that. Um, I mean, be honest with you, man, I was locked in. I was locked in on the NCAA track and field championships. I flipped back a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, man, that 110 hurdle world record coming down
Hmm.
was on my highlights of the weekend. I feel like I knew that was about to go down, but seeing it and watching it live action, that was the highlight of the weekend for me.
Yeah, that's right. That hurt meter for the women's was well too. A Deja Haas. I don't know what happened in the finals, but hey, you have to do it. Hey, especially with a day's rest. I'm not sure what's up with that.
I
We'll
mean,
get.
she came for the 200, so
Oh yeah, she got that. Oh yeah.
came for the
Oh yeah.
200, so that clears that up at least a
Yeah,
little bit.
everybody's getting fast. Before we get into dive into what's going on the I guess the high school scene with you and your program and maybe some college stuff. Let's get a little background on you. A lot of people they see you at the public league meets. They see you when you travel to the Metro East, the state meet, and your teams do well. And the first thing they ask is, "Who's the coach?" So, and most people don't you don't know who you are. That's what tends to happen when you come out of nowhere and surprise people. So, just let's give us some background. Kind of tell us, where you from, how you got involved with this sport of track and field, and you can go back as far as your grade school days or wherever you want to start. We here to listen.
Yeah, I can go back. I can go back to grade school. Track and field has always been something. Racing on the elementary school blacktop. It was two things that I was interested in. And it was basketball. I say three: basketball, football, and who was the fastest. That's been like ever since I can remember. Before I picked up a basketball or football, there's always a talk about, hey, who's the fastest? And I remember, the guy, I still remember the names of all the guys from each grade, who was the fastest in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third, fourth, what I'm saying? And so it's always been, track and field has always been, a part of just my upbringing. When you don't have a court or a football or a field, or, you can always line it up and race down the block. So, you know, I grew up in Oak Park. So I grew up in Oak Park. I went to Oak Park River Forest High School. Um, I played basketball, summer camps and never really played on the school team. And that's, I think, how I ended up running track in high school. Didn't necessarily want to run track. I wanted to play basketball and swim. Um, but being at Oak Park, swimming felt like cross country in the pool. So I walked out of the swimming locker room the day I decided swimming wasn't for me, and open track was happening, and that's how I really got connected with the sport for real. I mean, I ran in seventh and eighth grade, but it wasn't anything serious. It was just like, hey, you play basketball in the winter, and then you ran track in the spring, and that was just a part of what we did. Um, but uh, as far as is concerned, I ran at Oak Park River Forest High School. And immediately after my freshman year running at Oak Park, I was looking for what was next in track and field. and I found the Chicagoland Zephyrs at practice being held at Proviso East High School. Like that's the nearest program, and that's where I met Johnny Jenkins, Devon Binion, Mark Jones, Lorette Cherry, and they basically became my coaches because by the time I got to my junior year in high school, we didn't have a track and field sprints coach at Oak Park. We went 2 years without a track and field sprints coach. And I remember showing up to track practice at the start of my junior year and not having a coach for our training group, and my teammates looking at me like, Mike, you the captain. What's the workout? And that's really how I got my beginnings in coaching. But I also, coming off my junior year in high school, I had a torn meniscus, and after the season went bad, I finally went and got an MRI, which I thought was just a little IT band strain. Turned out to be a meniscus tear, and walked in. I was taking my little brother to Zephyrs practice at Proviso East, and kind of saw a need and started working with some 9-10-year-old boys in their relay. And I remember Lorette Cherry asking me, "Hey, you want to be a youth coach?" Said, "Yeah." And that was my first official coaching gig. So I don't know how deep you want me to.
No, we're kind of paused there. It sounds like Miss Cherry got some free labor out of you. But you specifically mentioned Johnny. So the first thing I need to know is, was Johnny fast? He do a lot of fast talking, claiming that he used to smoke the kids back in the day. You got firsthand account. Was Johnny Jenkins fast or not?
So man, I'm gonna tell you this. So Johnny can tell you some stories and he can tell you some things, and you like, man, I don't know if I believe what Johnny's telling me. Here's a vivid memory I had. I remember we were doing this workout. We were doing 400s. So I don't know, it's like 85 degrees. Why? But we were doing 400s. And I remember Johnny being, he yelling at us, come on, y'all, let's work. Get out. Come on, let's finish. And he meets us at the 100-meter mark on a home stretch. And he got on this little it's freshly creased, probably a little linen, short set, right? Clean, got some clean, fresh Air Force Ones on, white. And he like, come on, y'all. He meets us at the 100-meter mark and starts running backwards. I don't even think his ones creased. Like he running backwards down the home stretch while we running. I'm like, man, I'm hitting it. Is this dude really running in Air Force Ones? And sure enough, he did that for 3 out of the 4 reps that we ran, man. And I was just like, that's impressive. I always wanted, I didn't really wear Air Force Ones, but I envisioned myself as a coach running 100 meters, in a short set, linen little short sleeve, short set with some Air Force Ones on, and cheering my athletes on as they try to finish up a hard workout. But that's a vivid memory. I got one more for you. I don't know if you want to hear another.
Ahead.
All right, man.
Any chance to laugh at Johnny, we taking it. We probably still got that short suit.
We're at this summer track meet, and I can't remember where we were. Somewhere in like the southwest suburbs or northwest suburbs. I don't remember. Anyway, the sand pit for the long jump got grass growing in around the edges. And Johnny like, man, let's look at this little pit. I'll jump out of this pit. And somebody's like, I don't remember who it was. Somebody's like, I ain't gonna jump out of that pit. They said, I'll jump out of this pit. I bet you $100 I'll jump out of this pit. You bet $100. Put it up right now. I got my stuff in the car. Man, go on get it. Johnny like, all right, I'm going. You put the $100 up? All right, so the money get exchanged. I mean, no, but whatever. Johnny goes to the car, comes with what looks to be a brand new singlet and short set and some fresh spikes. Why this man has a singlet and short set with fresh spikes in his trunk while he's coaching and has had no intention of competing. He scoots up, warms up, and proceeds to jump out of the pit. I mean, I want to say he jumped like I believe he jumped 25 feet that day. He jumped out of that pit. Wherever that grass was, that's where he jumped. I can vouch for that. I seen Johnny jump out of a pit. And you heard it from me. So if you heard that story from Johnny, yeah, you now heard it from me. I can vouch for that.
Mm.
And Mike, and I remember that, man. It was crazy because I tell Pierre tried to challenge me at a coach's clinic. I'm like, P, you really don't want this, P. Like, I still got a little bit in the tank, man. Don't challenge me. But I remember that day, Mike. That guy
Look,
challenged me.
I seen
And
people
y'all was
challenge him to one-arm push-up contest. Like, man, if you challenge money, just be prepared that it's a 50-50 chance that you're gonna lose your money.
I told you, P, man. I mean,
that's just one person that can vouch for you. It's a big world, dude. Come on now.
Hey, I got
one
more.
person.
I got a person for you to vouch. See, Bo Wright, it wasn't the World Flyers. It was the Aurora Sundown. So you asked Bo was our fast. And we took third to Steve Lewis in 1988, 87 at Lincoln, Nebraska at National. They ran 3:10, we ran 3:13. Then he go and win the Olympics the next year. Hey man, I was all right, P. I was fat for a square, man.
All right. I mean, that's just a couple people. That's not enough. It's a big group. Yes, you mentioned Johnny was your coach. You did summer club. I don't want to jump too far, but that club scene versus the high school scene, it sounds like that club scene was more for you versus the high school experience.
Yeah, I mean, I can truly say that I got my coaching in the club scene, and Johnny, Devon Binion, Mark Jones, those were my coaches. So if you ask me who were your coaches in high school, my freshman year at Oak Park, Al Wright, who was the head coach at the time, that was my coach, and then Skylar Murray was my hurdle coach. But I got my real coaching. I learned track and field, and I got the I guess the grittiness. I learned the sport from being coached and being allowed to coach while being a Chicagoland Zephyr in that scene. And Johnny is one of the most instrumental parts of that experience that I had.
Look at Johnny helping Oak Park out again. We know you love Oak Park, Johnny. They supposed to be your rivals.
Now, Mike just wanted, P, and then he went to Chicago State, P. I end up going to Chicago State as well. So, hey, I tell Mike all the time, to see when he was in high school, to go to college and what he accomplished at college, and even coaching is amazing. And he say, and then, Micah, I'll be talking and Mike say, what you doing? And he said, man, I'm gonna use that. And Mike was like, man, I appreciate that.
No, yeah, I got a lot of nuggets, a lot of nuggets from Johnny, man. And then yeah, I went to Chicago State, and then Sudi Davis at Chicago State. I mean, Sudi, that's where Sudi kind of he gave me another coaching opportunity with the NYSP, the National Youth Sports Camp, which he was the director for. So he gave me an opportunity to coach, being a camp coach for that camp and being a counselor for that camp. But I mean, from getting there and then understanding that, oh man, Johnny's been through here, Devon's been through here, like these guys are all, I'm a part of this same coaching tree or lineage of that come through the Zephyrs and Sudi. And I mean, it's been a privilege to be able to say, yo, I'm among this same group of individuals and the same group of greats, because I mean, I ran at Chicago State, and granted, I was no I was no Johnny Jenkins but to still be in the same company with some great athletes and coaches, I'm real thankful for the opportunity. And the fact that I made it, I just ended up, I don't even remember how I heard about the Zephyrs. Nobody else was from Oak Park went over there. I just went over there by myself, and I was looking for something and I found it.
Yeah, you mentioned going to Chicago State, and can you kind of give us or tell us what was the most difficult transition athletically, and you could and academically as well, coming from high school to college, and then from that high school club scene to college competing. And but what was the most difficult parts of that transition for you?
I mean, the difficult part was that so by the time I got to Chicago State, I had only experienced, I wouldn't say I'd only experienced the rigor, like rigorous coaching and having being challenged in the summer. Like some of my best workouts and some of the best training that I got was in the summer. And that was great because it's hot in the summer and all that good stuff. But at Oak Park, we had an indoor facility. We ran outdoor on a cinder. We had a cinder track around the football field. But I wasn't challenged. And then our team at the time, the sprints group was not a strong group in the at my high school experience. The other difficult part was that around that time, there wasn't a huge high school presence even at the club scene at the Zephyrs. Around that time, a lot of the Zephyrs who had been competing had graduated, and so I ended up in my age group kind of by myself. I mean, there was another Billy Poole Harris was there. He also he came over with me. Maybe not the first year, but the next year maybe. But he was a distance runner, and by the time I got to college, I was leading my training groups at Oak Park, and then at the Zephyrs, I did have a little stunt where I trained with Marcus Head. I don't remember that guy, Marcus Head.
Yeah, Provisor West.
Yeah. So I trained with Marcus. Marcus didn't want to work like that, but I was always ready to work. And so he showed up, and I mean, he put down some nasty times and jumps that summer because I made him put in the work in the areas that he didn't want to put it in. Obviously, I couldn't hang with him when we were doing some Max V sprint stuff, but I made him put in the work whenever we did anything special endurance related or even intensive tempo or whatever. So I'm transitioning to college, and academically I wasn't academically motivated until I got to my senior year, and I was like, oh, I got to go to college. I want to run in college. And so I go to Chicago State. I'm not recruited there. I walk on the campus and meet Sudi, and I tell him, hey, I'm enrolled here and I want to run. And, we have a little brief conversation, which is the extent of, hey, did you make it to the finals downstate? And I'm like, nah, I didn't make the finals. And he's like, I know, because I ain't see you there. So I'm like, oh,
that's Sudi. That's Sudi.
Yeah. And but I actually don't go right out and start training with the track team. I just start living my college experience until I see somebody walk through, one of the dining. I see somebody walk through the dining hall that looks like he runs track, and I ask him, like, where you going? I'm going to track practice. I follow that guy over. I go grab my stuff, follow that guy over to track practice, and I get my training group, and to a certain extent, I can hang with the guys that are in my training group. But when it came to competition, it was like, man, my performances were not, I ran the same times for 95% of the season until I finally dropped like 2-3 seconds off my 400 time, and it was finally able to compete. I ended up getting on the podium in the Open 400 at conference as a freshman. But man, it was rough having to persevere. I'm getting adjusted to a training. I'm getting good training, and I'm training with guys that are challenging me. But at the same time, my performances are trash. And so, and Sudi wouldn't, until he fixed my sprint mechanics, he wouldn't let me hurdle. And so I came in as a hurdler, and he's like, you're not ready to hurdle because you got to learn how to sprint first. And, Johnny would clown me a little bit for my form and stuff. But when I got to Sudi, he was, he had the time. He's like, I got 4 years. I got the time. we're going to fix these mechanics because this ain't sprinting what you're doing. You just running fast. You running hard. Sprinting is an art. Right now, you're just running fast. Anybody can run fast. Everybody can't sprint. And so that was probably the most difficult point for me, trying to understand and grasp what he wanted me to understand about sprint mechanics and how to float and how to, how my arm swing should be when I'm accelerating versus when I'm on the back stress for that little period of the 400 while I'm floating. So, or how I needed to come down with my lead arm, over the hurdles. And so the transition in the mechanics, that was definitely the most challenging part, transitioning from high school to college, because, the training was on a different level.
So Mike, where you own college, tell us about your coaching experience in college.
So, when I got to Chicago State after my freshman year, I go back and I'm coaching with the Zephyrs. As a matter of fact, one of the coaches from Oak Park asked me to be a part of the River Forest. They started the River Forest track camp. So I'm coaching sprints and jumps at this River Forest track camp. Then I'm going to Zephyrs practice. Or matter of fact, I'm doing track. I'm the track instructor for NYSP from like 9 to 3. Then I go and I'm doing the track camp from like 4:30 to 5:30. Then I'm going to Zephyrs track practice at 6 or whatever. And so I'm like, after my freshman year running in college, and after I had basically were able to grasp some of the things, like I started coaching 3 different groups of kids. Additionally, I'm sitting in my downtime in Sudi's office, and I'm just a sponge. He's just talking to me about coaching and track and field, and I'm learning and understanding sport. Didn't realize what was happening. Didn't realize that he was like giving me the recipe for coaching track and field. But I was just literally, I would just go to his office. Anytime I had free time, I go to his office. I sit in that little chair by the door. And he, you know that chair, you know what I'm talking about. And
right in that little office.
And Sudi could talk, so I just sat there. He just talked, and it was crazy because I was soaking up so much. I don't think I mean, to be honest with you, I'm sitting here telling you right now, I didn't realize how much and the influence that it was having on me, while that was happening. But I mean, it was clear. I mean, well, it's clear now. I was thirsty to learn, this sport, learn the nuances of, coaching. He would talk to me. He talked to me about recruiting. He talked to me about eligibility. He would tell me. I mean, he told me everything. Which, I mean, if we fast forward, I became at that time I was I was hired I was the youngest NCAA Division I head coach in history when they hired me at 22.
Whoa.
Head coach at Chicago State University. I got to go back and break that down, don't I? Or am I jumping too fast? So I come back to that.
No. Let's stick with that. That's quite impressive. Most people graduate college, they want to get a job, once they graduate and all. But here you are coaching the kids you were just running with last year.
So it didn't happen in a traditional way. The way it happened, I mean, it was never planned. It was never. Sudi, they basically hired a new athletic director at Chicago State going to my senior year. And they named Sudi the associate athletic director at Chicago State. Now, Sudi knew that he would be associate athletic director and he'd have to fulfill those duties. However, he was under the impression he would still have the ability to be the head coach of the men's track and field program. However, the athletic director at the time was against it, but didn't say it until the season started. And it was just like, oh, you the athletic director, you the associate athletic director, you can't touch track and field. Now, Sudi had already gone ahead and he had hired Ed Wallace.
Legendary.
RIP Ed Wallace, the legend, coaching this sport in this state. And Ed Wallace had began facilitating some of our workouts, but the purpose of Ed Wallace was to help, give Sudi, someone who had the experience and the knowledge and the expertise to fulfill, or execute the training, but not to be the head coach. They had also brought on Wilson Aruse Kiptetel Coach. That was his name, Wilson. I know his whole name, so I got to say his whole name. He was one of my teammates. He had graduated and was a grad assistant, and he was kind of doing some of the administrative work as a coach, just kind of helping out with entries and all the different things. So you got Wilson, you got Steve Powinski, who was the distance coach, and you got Ed Wallace. Well, they didn't allow Sudi to coach, but as we start progressing through the season, there are decisions and things that have to get done, and Sudi can't be a part of it. Well, I'm still going to Sudi's office. I'm still, listening to him. I'm still spending the time with him. But it turns out I've got more knowledge of a lot of eligibility and recruiting and entries and all of these things because I spent so much time. I got more experience than any of these guys. And so I'm going through the season, and while I'm the team captain, I'm an athlete. I mean, I'm making decisions on who's running what relay and entries, and I mean, I'm an athlete at this time. Well, I graduate. That season comes to an end. I go on. I'm doing some direct sales jobs, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I get a call from Lamont Dagan. And Sudi tells me, hey, Lamont's going to be the new head coach at Chicago State. And I'm like, oh, man, no, this is good. Great. Lamont calls me and he's like, hey, Mike, I want you to come back and be on my staff. And I'm like, yo, this is perfect. I get to be assistant coach at Chicago State, working on Lamont's staff. And I'm like, yo, reporting to duty, whatever you need me to do, I got it. And so he's like, yeah, well, they're going to call you, for your interview. I go in and I'm ready for my interview. And Sudi comes out of the office and he's like, hey, Mike, you ready? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you interviewing for head coach? I'm like, what? I said, where's Lamont at? He said, he didn't take the job. I said, what you mean? He's like, hey, it's okay. You going, Sudi do his hands thing. He waved his hands a lot. And so he said, Lamont ain't take the job. Something about, And so I'm just like, man, I said, head coach. He said, man, no, relax. You got it. You know this stuff. Just go in there, interview. You're going to be all right. So I'm like, all right, I'm going in here. I'm interviewing for head coach. So I go and I just interview. And he tells me, that was good. It's good. I get called back. I'm hired as the new men's track and field and cross country coach at Chicago State. 22 years old, just graduated in May. It's December. So I start December 1st, or it was November or whatever. I start December 1st. And so, I got my first contract that, December 1st to June 30th. And here we go. Now there's some guys on the team, I graduated in 4 years. So I'm legit. I'm 22. There's guys on the team who, redshirted or transferred. There's guys on the team that are older than me that have been, in the college, competing longer than the time that I, have come and gone. And so, my first head coaching opportunity was as the head coach at Chicago State University, a Division I men's track and field athletics program. Yep.
That's wild. That is super wild.
Talk about being.
Hey, Mike, I remember that. And I remember how it went down because I called Lamont and was like, man, I heard, congratulations. And then I think I talked to you and you was like, man, I'm the head coach at Chicago. I was like, what?
Yeah, man. it definitely wasn't on my list of things happening in 2026 or whatever year that was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounded like you was groomed to be a coach, back in your younger days, and obviously you sounds like you unintentionally the head coaching job fell into your lap. Like, so I don't think maybe 22-year-olds say that I'm the head coach of a Division I school, and then they throw you right into the fire. So let's fast forward a little bit. I know you had some stops as assistant coaches somewhere, but all that eventually leads to the South Side and Blackstone Avenue, Kenwood High School. Um, can you tell us how you ended up at Kenwood before we get into some of the your successes at Kenwood and just navigating the public league and stuff like that? We'll touch on that for those who don't know. So how'd you get to Kenwood High School?
Well, I worked for 12 years. I was a technology coordinator in CPS, so I worked at Chicago Public Schools, um, and I found my way into Chicago Public Schools through a social service agency that I worked through while I was at Robeson. So my first Chicago Public League coaching was at Robeson as assistant coach. I worked with Coach Roy Curry over there, and he kind of gave me the ropes to coaching CPS. But I was a technology coordinator, and I've been to like 5 different elementary schools, and budgets weren't they weren't allowing these elementary schools to keep me on the staff, and so I jumped around a bunch, and I got an opportunity. I actually got an opportunity to either go to Kenwood or Whitney Young, and I actually interviewed at Whitney Young, and my interview was a little bit more like, hey, technology coordinator or computer technician and assistant coach, like we can work you in and get you, figure out a schedule where you can be able to, work with the track and field program and coach. And however, the interview at Kenwood was more, they needed somebody to kind of put an infrastructure for technology into the school. And Phil Wallace was at Kenwood. He had was coaching both programs at that time. So when I was going in for my interview, I intentionally parked by the track and walked through, and of course I ran into Phil, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? He said, what you doing up here? And I'm interviewing for the technology coordinator. I was like, man, I'd love to come over there, come over here, work with your hurdlers or whatever, just, get in where I fit in. He's like, oh man, I love to have you over here. And I'm just like, well, we'll see how this interview goes. And so I interviewed, and ultimately, Whitney Young dropped the ball. They dropped the ball, trying to have me hold off on signing. And I said, well, look, I'm gonna sign either with Kenwood or I told them I'm gonna accept the offer by Thursday, and y'all want me to wait till Tuesday. And if you don't give me an offer by Thursday, I'm accepting an offer at Kenwood. And I went to Kenwood. I feel like there was an infrastructure that needed to be implemented for the school's technology. But with track and field, I mean, I knew Phil was, he was, I think he started with the boys, but he was over both programs, and the girls were really, thriving, and the boys program didn't appear to be getting a whole lot. I know sometimes football interferes with the ability for a boys track program if they're not on the same page, and so it looked like they just weren't at the same level. But I got to Kenwood, but the first year I was like, man, this work is a lot. I was doing a lot of overtime. I didn't have the ability to coach at all. Going into the next year, Phil ended up leaving. He ended up leaving, or no. I can't remember, man. I do remember when Phil ended up leaving. I don't know if it was the next year or the year after. No, it was the next year. Next year. I thought the boys coaching position was becoming available, and it became available, just not available to me. I didn't even know there was an interview or anything. The position was given to someone else, and somebody was like, "Hey," matter of fact, Crystal had gotten the women's head coach position, And she was like, hey, they don't have a boys cross country coach. And I was like, all right, nobody's coaching boys cross country. I'll take it. And so I took over boys cross country. And then when track season came around, I basically volunteered on the boys coaching staff. But it was just, the program was being, it was still in a interesting phase because a lot of the top athletes on the team weren't even competing. Like, they were training, but they were playing 7-on-7 football on the weekend, so they weren't even attending the meets. And so it got to a point where a lot of the guys who were on the team when Phil was there, like, they were like quitting. They were like trickling off, and I'm like, yo, where y'all going? Don't go nowhere. And I actually started, I talked to the head coach. I'm like, hey, these guys, they're in other activities and things. Like, I don't want these guys to go anywhere. Can we work with them? Can I work with them, in the mornings or whatever? And so we started doing that. And basically, I just kind of handed the distance guys and the other guys who were track only guys and not track football guys. So with that, I did that. COVID interrupted that year. Matter of fact, our first meet on a 200-meter track was supposed to be when Johnny had given us an invite, because the boys didn't have a real schedule. The girls had a schedule. They were going places. The boys, I think we ran at Thornwood a couple times indoor on the 145, and then we ran at Evanston on the 160. And so I'm like, hey, Johnny, man, we need a meet, man. We need a meet on a 200-meter track. And he was like, all right, y'all can come to this meet. COVID shut the world down.
Yep.
So that was my first year. My first year got shut down by COVID. Go ahead. Did you have?
Yeah, that's usually how it works. Everybody's on 160 until you meet Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works out. Get him some pizza or something. You'll be at his meets for life. It works out. And it sounds like it worked out for you in the post-COVID era for Kenwood. Obviously, you as the boys coach, the boys program has taken off. Within that stretch, dating back to post-COVID, obviously, up until this year's state meet 2026, your teams have brought home some gold. I believe you have 2 relay gold medals in big class track, and individual champion as well in the long jump. I believe 4th place I believe you got 4th place twice. It's probably the worst place to be. I'm sure you know that. But a lot of CPS schools do not just can't get over that barrier. Obviously, Kenwood back-to-back 4th places. I believe the Dunbar teams of the 2010s got 3rd, and after that, you got to look way back into the 70s for those Phillips teams who got 3rd place. So we don't see a lot of CPS teams.
Morgan Park played a team, I think, in 2015.
That was 2A. So
you said
I was talking big class.
I got you. Okay, so you're talking about before the split of 3 classes.
Yeah. So what would you say was the biggest change, whether it's coaching, team coach, or whatever, to get you from that, to get Kenwood over the hump from, I guess, not being a major team player on the big stage to, as I mentioned, 2 top 5 finishes and being relevant at major invitationals, indoor and outdoors, and have some of the best times in state history these last 3 years. What was that? What clicked for you to get that team over the hump?
Well, it's a little bit of patience, and but also gradually shifting the program. It wasn't. So I started in the 2019-2020 season. That was an indoor season. And then I came back in 2020, 2021. So the 21 season, we only had an outdoor season. And so, but that year, going into city championships, I'm a analytical guy. So I went and did the numbers, and I'm like, yo, if we run everybody down on frost-off, we win this thing by 30 points. And I don't think anybody sees it coming, because typically CPS schools don't run their kids down. Everybody runs up on varsity to try and
get that.
And so I'm like, nah, man, we need to show these kids what the ability that they have, because if they can see, and I kind of pitched it to the coach, And I said, hey, we should run everybody down. And at first he's like, nah, man, I don't know. I said, man, I did the math. We win by 32 points. I think we ended up winning by 36. But I did the math. I said, man, nobody's going to see this coming. And we go ahead, we give these kids a championship opportunity. We give them a chance to go in there and fight for a championship on the frost level, and then understand, hey, look, well, listen, in 2 years or in a year, next year, whatever, these are the same guys you're competing against. But that means we have to change what we're doing. And so sure enough, we went in and we ended up winning that frost off title. And then the next year, the head coach actually stepped down. There were some conflicts with football, and football season had done better. And so football season extended into November, prep bowl. And it was like, man, track guys were like itching. And it was like, man, there was a little conflict. And it was just like, well, he stepped down. And so I took over the program in I think I took over the program right as we were going into the winter break. And so my first year as a head coach, I didn't really even have a conditioning season. I had maybe a couple weeks over the break, and then January before ML Martin Luther King Day, when the season usually starts. And what I did each year was I just start building up their tolerance for track and field work, because we hadn't necessarily, other than the kids who have run summer track. And let me actually backtrack. The kids who were track and field kids, because of that COVID year and there not being no indoor season, it was necessary to run summer track. So summer track became, Crystal Lindsay and I, we actually started a club, which is kind of, not in effect right now, but we're figuring that out, whether or not or how we're going to get that back going. But we created a club called Horsepower, and those kids ran over the summer. And so that summer season was when we were really able to engage them and teach track and field and build their tolerance for track and field workouts. Because at a certain point, and I learned this from Roy Curry, you got to give them enough where they get the work, but you can't give them too much where they won't come back. So the idea was to give them enough, but build up their tolerance for the work. So now the work doesn't feel like that much work, because, I remember a kid came and was like, man, our warm up is more than what we were doing before. And it was like, well, hey, if you doing the warm up feels like just a warm up now, where it felt like a workout, then now we're getting somewhere, because, the shorter you run, the longer you need to warm up. So the shorter the race, we need to warm up longer. And so that's kind of how I started. And I would build in each year in which different groups of kids, you got to listen to the kids. You got to pay attention to them, pay attention to their disposition, their attitude. Sometimes you got to just back off. It's knowing your kid. So if you ask me, the way that I built that program or have been able to build this program the way that it is I build culture first. You got to build culture. You start teaching them work ethic, and you learn your kids and learn what they can handle. And as you're building, as you're training, you start where they are and you build up to where they need to be. And the more they want it, the more you can give them.
That's right. I guess we could touch, and you can give us what you want. I know you got some of your competitors listening out there. Your training method, is it the same when you first started as it is now, or did you kind of play around with, how you attack training kids? Give us an insight on that. And keep in mind, playing tech kids listening.
Yeah, no. So no. On a serious note, when I first started coaching, I was just straight coaching what I knew. I'm just taking workouts it was just like, hey, but I remember when I first started kind of coaching on my own team at Oak Park, it was like, well, this is what we normally do on a Monday around this time of the year. And this is what we usually do on a Tuesday around this time of the year. And this is what we used to do on a Wednesday. And I had just stored, I didn't even know it. I just stored all those workouts in my mind. And I just remember these are the types of workouts. This was the intensity. And I just started memorizing. I didn't even know that I had a whole Rolodex of workouts in my mind throughout the season. As I got older, I mean, I went, I got my USATF level 1 right here. What was that, 2006, 2007, when it was at Loyola. So that's been almost 20 years when I first got my level 1. And then I remember I went in 2007, I went to the USTF convention I think it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I started, I'm talking to coaches. I'm just sitting around tables, man. Look, I'm ear hustling on everything. And I started learning. And I remember when I got hip to, I'm like, oh, wait, Clyde Hart. This is who Coach Michael Johnson and Jeremy Warner. And so I was like, oh, I'm doing what Clyde Hart did. And so I started studying Clyde Hart. And so it went from doing the things that coaches Johnny and Devon and Mark and Sudi and those coaches had done, or even going back to elementary school. I can't forget Kevin Allen, who was at Oak Park. Yeah, he was my 7th, 8th grade coach. I was terrible back then and didn't care. It was just
he still had that orange suit on.
But Kevin Allen, no, we were red and white at Percy Julian Middle School with Benson, who was a Hall of Famer as well. But yeah, so it went from just those workouts to, hey, this is who I'm attaching my coaching philosophy to, the methodologies of Clyde Hart and the coaching philosophy of Clyde Hart. And I began studying Clyde Hart. And I started learning, oh, wait, a lot of the guys they also study Clyde Hart. And I mean, I think 2 years ago at the ITCA clinic, Clyde Hart came and was a presenter. and I don't think Johnny realized how much I had studied Clyde Hart. Go ahead, Johnny. What were you about to say?
Hey, I asked him, I'm like, who you going to listen to? Clyde Hart, bro. You got to come in and listen to him. And we go there, P. And when I say Mike was like a kid in a candy store, he was sitting down there like, he getting his note, he got his notepad out. I say, Mike. He like, man, I got to get this. And then after it was over, Clyde Hart was like, I got books for sale. Shit, Mike beat everybody out the door. Pew! And I said, Mike. He said, man, Johnny, I start really, because I asked him about his group. He said, man, I put some Clyde Hart in it. I put a Yola stuff. I put Sudi stuff. And he said, man, it turned out, he was putting this cake together. And he said, man, Clyde Hart, though, took him over the hump. And I was like, man, so Mike, like he said, if he hear I'm doing something, be like, huh, what you doing that? I'm like, all right, I'm going to try that. I said, all right. But I think, what's the difference, Mike, with CPS and, let me ask you this, versus non-CPS? Like, okay, like I came from Proviso, you came from Oak Park, and now you went to Kenwood. So you got the city kids, compared to the suburb kids.
So I think a big factor is, and when I think a big factor is facilities, but not just access to facilities. Facilities don't just mean, oh, I got an indoor track or I got an outdoor track or I have this and I have that. Facilities, you know what else happens in facilities? Records, list of who are the record holders, who are the champions, trophy cases, like organized data to see, hey, this is what this school has been and become. And when we're trying to, and I think our new AD, Larry Avery, he's trying to get some things in order. He's already, trying to clean out and organize some trophy cases and things. But having facilities and field houses and gyms where banners are hung, and that means a lot, because athletes go and they see, hey, I mean, I remember being at Oak Park and you walk into the athletic building and there's the whole wall of fame. You go in Proviso West, there's the wall of fame, and you see all these guys. You see Johnny's name, and you see these people, and you're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be like that. I want my name up here. But when in a CPS school, the average CPS school, you may have it. It might have been in the 60s. You might have it, but there's nothing. And things have changed so much in terms of equity among athletics and sports that the kids don't have the ability to have a vision and dream to have this attainment, or like there's nothing for them to visually see that they want to achieve. And that's not to say all schools, I think, I'm sure Whitney Young does a pretty good job. And as far as Kenwood is concerned, we do probably a better job than many other schools. And I haven't been in every building. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying the access or even where these places to be able to come into a centralized location and walk past trophies and things every day. And right now, man, I'm still trying to get some of the records and state champs and things. I'm still trying to get all of that stuff for Kenwood, and even recognize, there's a Hall of Fame coach from Kenwood, Ed Key. Mm-hmm. All the 80s teams. Like when I came to Kenwood, I didn't just say, okay, I'm gonna start coaching here. Nah, I hit Phil up and I say, hey, Phil, I'm looking for the records. I'm looking for history. I want to know who is here, who did what. I need my kids to be able to see and know what they're going after. And so I got all those records, and some of it was incomplete. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm piecing this together. Got this here and that there. And that's important because CPS, I think that's one of the major factors that isn't acknowledged or recognized, that they can't visually see all that's been done and know the history. I mean, I've gone through, and I go through the record books, and I know who has, these Hall of Fame coaches. But I mean, you ask anybody at Kenwood, like, who Ed Key is. I mean, the track team knows. They know now because I made sure they knew. I made sure, hey, that record from 1983, the coach was Ed Key. I want my name next to something. I want to go and look in 1983 and 1986, and I see all these individual champions from Kenwood, and I see the coach Ed Key. I want to see Mike Runnels the same way, and so just as me as a coach, I have that. I need that for the athletes. And I think the big difference is facilities and being able to hang those banners and put those records and plaques and things up. That's a big important factor.
So let me ask you this, Mike. Being from Oak Park, going to Chicago State, going to Kenwood, like for me, it's like, I started coaching at Proviso East for 9 years. Nicholas Brown, Sergio Brown, Sir Oliver. Man, I could just name them, all the kids I had. And like I tell people, I even tell Pierre, and y'all both younger than me, it's a lot different. Like it seemed like it get harder to coach because kids don't really have a drive, a hunger. Everybody think they Odell Beckham, and everybody think they Stephen Curry. And now you got Kenwood believing in track and field, because I know at first, and I talk to you all the time, Mike, not, like we talk about track and you, the ups and downs you done had. And for Peter to say you came in fourth twice at the state meet, I wasn't going to ask you that question, because I know how you feel.
I mean, that's not a shot. That's actually that's actually good, because as he just mentioned, the resources. I'm sure if he had what some of the wealthier suburban programs had, 18 buses, and I know you mentioned facilities or records, whatever the case may be, then maybe we having a different conversation. But like I said, I'm not sure how he felt after that. But from an outsider media guy, I love to see it. I love to see it, man.
And you know what, Mike? Another thing you said, when I first came to West to coach, like you said, y'all see the Wall of Fame, but we had like in the crossover, we had plaques, all conference. They had the teams up there. And one of the principals took it down. I'm like, why? I tell Mike, when they see something, they want to, they say, man, why your name's still up there? I say, well, it's up there. You can take it down. Give them something to look for. You know what I'm saying? Oh, was you that fast or you jumped that far? I said, well, I didn't have this track. I didn't have this track at Proviso West. It was tar. Yeah. Anybody in the 80s, 60s, yeah. They put this down when Kerr and Beatty came in 1990. You know what I'm saying? So I told him, if I was running on this track, man, y'all probably never break the record.
I mean, I know them names: Kerwin Beatty, Campbell, Oak Park. Like, all man, you got to be a historian, man. And I mean, not you have to be a historian. I'm a historian. I like to acknowledge history. But I feel like you were getting at something. And culture building in CPS is also very different because in the city, obviously in the suburb, I went to Oak Park. Everybody lived in Oak Park. In the city, there's now, even though we have neighborhood boundaried schools, every school in CPS, whether it's a selective enrollment or neighborhood boundary school, is also a choice school. So when they do the high school enrollment application, they can select any neighborhood boundaried school as a choice school. So we get we get kids at Kenwood that have selected Kenwood as a choice school, and they're not from the immediate neighborhood boundary. And obviously the choice options or the choice seats are available based on how many seats are available in the school. And I feel like our school is over capacity, and it wouldn't change 3A or 2A. But as far as, the hallways are crowded walking through that building because I don't think it's meant to handle. I think they're overshooting how many people we can handle at the school. And our principal's been kind of fighting to reduce the population because everybody wants to go there because, number one, academically, it's the highest performing non-selective enrollment school for the past at least decade. It's the only school that's performed at that level that's a neighborhood school for the past decade or more. And then on top of that, athletics have now, boom. And it just so happens, it's so crazy that Kenwood just ended up with a bunch of great coaches all at the same time. I mean, our baseball coach, Romy Bracey, he just left, but Romy or Rami, Crystal, Lindsay, myself, at the time it was, Senku Turner had just, started, I think 2 years before I got there. Just a bunch of great coaches just ended up all at the same time. And with all of those programs, all of the programs were catapulted to the levels that they were around culture.
Yep.
Coaching new, and when you're talking about kids these days, it's a new generation. The kids these days are no different from when, it was the 70s and then it was like all these 80s kids, the kids these days, and it was the 80s and then the 90s kids, the kids these days, and the 90s, the 2000s. Every generation, they're going to change and there's going to be something new. And you're saying, it feels like they're not motivated. Well, it's not that they're not motivated. It's that you got to find what motivates them. You got to figure it out. So every year, not only do you just go to your, and this is not to say, I strongly believe in, and I plan on doing some work coaching education this summer for myself. And I'm kind of requiring my whole coaching staff to do coaching education, whether it's USATF or USTF, CCCA, whatever. But you can't just study the science of coaching the sport and think that your program is going to get better. Because number one, you need kids first. And when I first got to Kenwood, you couldn't fill a boys track team. And now, because we don't have the facility space, we have to turn kids away. We actually have to cut. And I tried as much as I can not to cut, but at a certain point, it's like, I can't fit any more kids in the hallway. you're telling security and staff, like, your kids are all over the place. Okay, I need somebody with them down there over here. And so I can only run 2 kids down the hallway at once. The dividing door, I can't run nobody down the middle. They're going to hit the beam. And so, the facilities isn't just about that. It's about how many kids. And so I think probably my biggest team this year, I think I had 61 kids on the team. And that's because I cut less. And it's, when you got to look at your talent numbers too, like, oh, what I got this year. And, but I try and keep kids and develop kids. I don't ever want to turn a kid away from his sport. But I mean, if it becomes a safety issue, then I got to figure something out, because I can't have, 50 kids or 60 kids unsafe if I can't handle it. But coaching isn't just about the science of the sport. It's a culture of the generation that you're coaching. And I always want to be attached to the kids and listen to the kids. A lot of things that allow my kids to buy in. When I'm wrong, I apologize to my kids. I say, hey, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. That wasn't the best. And don't worry about it. If you can forget about it, let's move on. I'm gonna try not to make that mistake, and I'll trust you to hold me accountable. And so, if you've seen me coach and you've seen me with my group, I get a little fiery, and you'll see me, get a little fiery with my group. But I don't do it without the love that I show them and making sure that they respect that I care about them. And I do care about my kids. I care about any kid, and I'll coach any kid that comes my way. And it ain't no shade. If you see me talking to your kid or motivating your kid, trust me, I ain't doing no recruiting. I ain't trying to get your kid to come to my school. If I see a kid that loves this sport and wants to excel, and they come and ask me something, I'm gonna encourage them, and I'm gonna do all that I can to make sure.
Mike, I'm apologize, because I talk to your kids all the time.
You ain't gotta apologize to me.
Hey, then Mike was like, y'all better sit over there and listen to him. But I said, man, you for real, Mike, like what you're saying, because I know when Devon was over at CVS, it was rough, so I just take my hat off to you, man, like, for real, because I'm proud of you. And every time, every year, I give you the utmost respect. And I tell my kids, and they was like, you coached him? They like, you a dinosaur. I'm like, well, Mike, Mike is not old. You know what I'm saying? I say he's not old, but hey, man, for real. And I know Pierre want to ask you the next question, because I already know the answer.
I didn't know what question I'm about to ask. I actually got 2 questions before we hit some rapid fire and get you out of here. We know Johnny's bedtime's at 8:30.
Oh, man, you crazy.
Obviously coming up in the early 2000s, and we 20 years removed from that. Do you consider yourself old school or new school, or do you kind of float in the middle given this current generation?
You feed the cats, Mike?
He over there phoning a friend. Look at him.
I'm trying to figure out what's this in my yard making this noise.
A cricket. Don't worry about it. It's a cricket.
Now, I hope it ain't a fox, man. There's a fox in my yard. Hold on.
Close the door.
I have to close this. Hold on.
Uh-oh. Why you got this door open in Chicago?
Oh, that's a rabbit. What you doing?
A rabbit?
Take all that noise. Get out my yard.
He ran for a rabbit.
I was trying to figure out what the sound was, man. Somebody's being attacked.
Look at Johnny getting his energy drink.
I mean, rabbits usually always in my yard, but we get, every once in a while you see a fox, a coyote, something come through here. But anyway, man, hold on, what was the question?
Old school versus new school. Which one do you consider yourself?
Man, so my coaching staff told me that I'm old school. They told me that I'm old school, and I like to consider myself pretty new school. I mean, I like there are philosophies and things that some things you never go away from, and in terms of like, there's just certain things you never go away from when it comes to like mechanics and and the toughness that this sport. I train everything. I guess this is why you can say I would say I'm old school, and I don't know how many people. I don't know how many new school people believe this. Everybody on my team got to be able to run the 400. Obviously,
old school.
The throwers, and my jumps coach had every last one of my jumpers run a 400 this year, and I was gonna leave them alone because it's probably the first year that I didn't touch the jumpers. I let my jumps coach coach them solely, the whole training program. Throwers same, mid distance and distance same, and so I just coached the sprinters and hurdlers. But everybody got to run the 400. Everybody, and it better be good, because no way you could be on my team and not run a 400. And there's a couple guys, I'll be looking at my athletic.net. Now, why y'all got my athletic.net looking like that, man? I don't do 400, man. So I guess if you take that aspect, and Crystal, Lindsay, she the same way. Everybody, we 400 meter coaches. If I can coach the 400, I mean, you're gonna run a good 100, 200, but you got to be able to run that 400. That's what, I don't know. It's just the 400 got to be right.
That's right. Old school. One major question, we'll get into some rapid fire before we get you out of here. Obviously, being at CPS, I know you just do some club stuff. I know your son runs for one of the local Chicago clubs. How can Chicago track grow? Because and I mentioned that because if you look at the team standings from the state meet, regardless of class, we do have Chicago teams in the 1A bracket as we speak. How can Chicago grow so these teams can get more competitive or have some higher finishes at the state level?
I mean, if you ask me, I already see that Chicago. I believe Chicago track is growing and it's beginning to grow. And I think, just like you mentioned, the club scene is an opportunity for track to grow. Now, a couple of things factor into that. Access to indoor facilities. Indoor is if Chicago teams have access to indoor facilities, that's one of the biggest things. It was a certain point where, University of Chicago and Proviso West were the only two places you could run on a 200 meter track. And the Chicago teams saw University of Chicago once a year for the indoor, the 3 meet. It used to be a 3 meet, situation. And with the emergence of, the Dr. Conrad Worrell Track and Field Center at Gately Park, you got to call it by its full official name, that has, catapulted Chicago track and field for indoor specifically. The indoor championships have become a premier track and field meet that, it's like, man, everybody, the suburban teams have their conferences, but now, you got Chicago, the CPL. And so indoor, and I think indoor is growing exponentially. Now, again, outdoor, access to more track and field facilities. That is still the underlying factor. But even with the South Side meets that you host at St. Rita, the Windy City meets over at Chicago Hope, like more opportunities, more tracks, clubs, as well as middle schools competing during the indoor and during that season now give the high school track and field sport a little bit of a boost, and it gives the opportunity for track to grow. Now, obviously, the most obvious part is we need more competent coaches coaching in CPS schools. Maybe some schools need to more co-ops, or schools, hey, let's figure out a way to get, schools that don't have that, get these kids connected with summer programs. Now, I mean, I've seen this summer actually alone, just this past weekend, I saw a lot more Chicago athletes, Chicago public school athletes competing at the AAU district, district qualifier. And so that provides another opportunity. My program grew from the summer session going into the 2021 season. Mm-hmm. And if that did what it did for just the love and respect for the sport of track and field, imagine if more teams and more athletes in Chicago public schools begin seeking out summer programs. And I know clubs are like, man, come to my club. Come on. Hey, go to whatever club, and I'll go to whatever club kids are going to run at. It doesn't matter. People look at me like, man, how are you going to be a competitor and you don't care about nothing? You tell a kid, like, you ain't going to ask a kid, you ain't going to recruit a kid to your school, none of that. If you come to my school, I'm going to coach you. And if I'm coaching you, you're going to get good coaching. And so I think that's the biggest thing. There's becoming more and more access to resources in track and field. And I think that's what will allow the sport to grow.
That's right. Especially indoor. It's cold 3 out of the 4 months of the season. So, and
I plan on hosting some more meets, and even my vision when with Bronco relays, and hosting indoor meets myself or hosting meets in general. I hosted a meet at Jackson Park, and I was like, I want all the local schools in this area to come to this meet. So I was like, Hyde Park, and like whoever is in the area, who's ever in the vicinity. And really, I thought about it in an aspect like, hey, whoever, because we got busing issues, right? So I'm like, whoever don't need a bus to get here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. CPS have bus issues, guys. We don't have those nice little buses y'all have out there in Proviso and Flossmoor. I know Kenwood have one bus, but like you said, you got 70 kids. Most of them CTA own or Raj. Yeah. Quick rapid fire. We Mount Rushmore, since America's turning 250, that's one national monument in this country. Give us your Mount Rushmore of track and field, Illinois history. And I don't care how you do it. You can do it boys and girls, but you can't use any Kenwood guys. But I do want to shout out your crew. You had a great crew that done some great things in the past years. Hartley, Bolware, Campbell, Logic West, those kind of guys. But on this Mount Rushmore, you got to leave them all.
Oh, you mean like athletes?
Athletes. Anybody. It could be anybody. Who's your Mount Rushmore? Whether it's somebody you competed against, you've seen compete, what you got for us?
Okay, so and this is, man, first person that comes to mind. Obviously, I go back to my days competing, man. Ryan Shields.
Woo.
Ryan Shields. I mean, I competed against that dude and indoor, and I remember, I competed against him at Oak Park, and it was terrible. Our track was, it was terrible 160. And he just like cruised to like a easy early opener, like 50.5 on that track. And I was just like, what? And I ran a pretty fast. I ran like a 53 in the opener, like 53.0. And I'm like, that's moving for that 160 that early in the year. This guy drops a 50.5. But man, go down year after year. 124. That's who else? Obviously there, Alexandria Anderson, like no way, not to mention her. And look, so I'm a hurdler, and obviously coming up through my age, coming up through my time, watching, hurdlers, Crystal Riley, now Lindsay, she was one, but then right then, her senior year, Don Harper, boom, blast on the scene. It's like, whoo. So, but those that's from my era. I guess I don't know. I got this thing. I like seeing that 124 double and in the COVID year, Brandon Battle.
Edwardsville. Just won a national title at Arkansas as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, and then obviously I came out of the West Suburban Silver, and so I saw guys. I saw guys, Donald Sage from York. Um, um, what's who is it that I'm you know Kyle Erickson and John Schweigert, 300 hurdlers record just went down this year. I mean, that record held since what, 2000? 2000, 2000? Yeah, 2000.
No.
I remember watching that race, that 300 hurdle race. John Schweigert from
Wheaton South,
Warrenville South,
yep,
and Kyle Erickson from York. But I remember that race vividly, man. And then Wheaton North, AJ Harris. Remember, AJ Harris was previous state record holder in the 110 hurdles. I mean, that record is just obliterated now.
Yeah, all them records gone. Trackflation.
You gotta throw Jalen Cole. You gotta throw Jalen Cole, in there, because man, what he's done the last 2 years, man, has been wild.
Yes.
I'm leaving $1 million out, and I don't know.
Mount Rushmore's 4 heads. Cut it out. 4 heads. He gave us 30.
Oh man! All right, so look, if I'm a Mount Rushmore,
and you already gave us 8. We'll make that work.
Oh, so we gonna make that work.
We'll make that work. Johnny, you was on the outside looking in. You was number 9. Sorry, bro.
I was throwing out the names that came to mind when I was gathering.
Those are some good names, and I like how you mix it up, Chicago and non-Chicago. So we definitely that's some good people. But like with this new trackflation and all these spikes or whatever's going on, these records about to drop.
Yeah, man,
at a rapid pace.
People were doing stuff in rivals back.
Man,
everything was a rival. Everything was a Nike rival.
Man, I sprinted, jumped, and hurdled in the same shoe all 4 years. Never changed. Yep. So we was poor. So we get you out of here. Go ahead, Johnny.
I had 2 pairs of shoes though. In the original Dick Pond, used to drive the red truck. So I had me 2 pairs of shoes. I had some Carl Lewis jump spikes, and I had me some Nikes. I forgot what they was. That was about a lot of years ago.
Hey man, I thought I was doing it when I got me a pair of them Terrence Trammell Mizuno hurdle spikes. You remember those?
Yeah, I remember those.
Those shoes was heavy as hell. Those shoes, with the zippers on the fronts.
And then you know what else I had? I don't know if you remember. This is when I was in college. Asics had it was like a 2 split shoe. It was supposed to be the same shoe on the outside specifically for curve running. So the same shoe so it's black on the left of the left shoe and on the left of the right shoe, and then red on the right of the left shoe and the right. It was crazy. It was a split.
Too much.
Yeah, it was.
I had shoes everywhere. It's shoes for every event. That's out of control. So, we get you out here on this. I see Johnny. He's sleep right. Wake up, Johnny. Get up. Look at you. See that?
I ain't sleep.
I'm not sure how long you plan on being in this coaching game of track. I know you got a young boy coming up. I'm not sure if you want to coach him on some Jalen Brunson type stuff or not. Yeah, you. But but once it's all said and done, when you bring your coaching career to a close, what would you say would be? I mean, what would you say success have looked like for you? What would success look like for you once you bring an end to your coaching career? And I'm not saying you retire anytime soon. You got some time left, a lot of time. But what would success have looked like for you?
I mean, I'd like to win. I'd like to win a state title or some state titles. I'd like to. To be honest with you, and I guess this makes me an old school coach. I'm at Kenwood. This is my first high school head coaching. As crazy as it sounds, my first high school head coaching opportunity, and so I'm going into my 6th year, and so I'd like to have put in some time, some time at Kenwood, and be a ballot, for Hall of Fame and see my teams on a regular basis, you know, make the podium.
Mm.
I like to put points up at the state meet on a regular basis. This is the first, crazy as it sounds. I mean, this is my, I just finished my, this is my this is my 5th year as head coach. Yeah. But anyway, this is the first year that I didn't score a single point at the state meet. And it was rough because I think some things should have gone a little differently had a couple circumstances happen a little differently. But we also, this year, man, I probably needed to mention this. We didn't have a weight room this year. Our weight room was under construction and is still under construction. Hoping it to be released and open next week. But I coached a full track season and without a weight room. And so while, that 42-1 4x1 and 127-9 4x2 and 323 4x4 didn't make the finals, I had to look and reflect and say, hey, man, this season was still a success because after the group that I graduated, I was able to develop some new guys. And so that's a part of what I want my coaching team to look like. I want to be able to say, hey, I developed some track and field athletes. I didn't just, these kids are moving on with a thirst for track and field and running on the next level. I'd like to see more athletes running on the next level, whether it be NAIA, D3, D2, D1. I'd like to see more at any and all levels. And so, ultimately, I want to win some chips. I want to dominate this. I want the city to level up. Mm-hmm. I don't mean I don't still want to win it every year. But I mean, those are a couple of things that come to mind when that question is asked. And I do want to be able to coach my son. And so we'll see what that looks like.
All right. Don't be too hard on him when the time comes. All right, Johnny Jenkins, Mike Runnels, appreciate y'all on this 14th episode. Tune in. We'll get this out to the public league coaches and some good bits in here that people need to hear. So hopefully they take your advice as you've done it at the highest of levels in recent memory. And it's a major invitation. I didn't bring up Belleville West, but yes, you did. That's a major invite. That's kind of a preview of what's to come for the season. So congratulations on your recent success. Keep on building, and we'll see you down the line.
All right.
Johnny, you go to bed. You better not be there in the morning. Go to bed, Johnny.
No, I'll be back in the morning. All right, Mike.
All right. Peace.
All right. Peace.